Amazon's The Boys has to be one of the most unique superhero shows from the last few years. They're not confined by the type of superhero code that most shows and movies follow. In this series, pretty much anything goes. There is a lot of blood and gore, and also a lot of special effects to tell the story of the two groups of heroes that come up against each other. The Seven, with their superpowers that keep people hooked, and the Boys, the group of vigilantes who want to unmask them. How different would this show be without the special effects that we see on the screen? Please remember to give us some love by hitting that like button, then subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you will never miss a thing. What is The Boys about? It is set in a universe where there is a corporation that works with superheroes and uses them for marketing and to make money. They give these superheroes personas and they make them look amazing and great to the public. But in reality, they are corrupt and arrogant, and they might even be really dangerous. They are called the Seven. They are led by Homelander, one of the worst so-called heroes around. He is a narcissist and incredibly violent, and he might have had a hand in some very serious and shady dealings. Then there are the Boys, who are led by Billy Butcher. Billy has a deep hatred for Homelander, and they all aim to take down the Seven and expose them for who they really are. The conflict between the two groups is intense, and it creates some amazing cinematic moments. How many seasons are there, and where can we see it? Season 1 and 2 are already available to watch on Amazon Prime Video, and they have also started shooting Season 3 already. It's going to be a while before we get to see it. It only started shooting now, and this show takes months to film. Then there's everything that they need to add afterwards, and you get the idea. Producing a season can take a long time, so I wouldn't expect to see Season 3 until at least the end of the year. But it is not only the third season that we have to look forward to. A new spin-off of The Boys is also in the works. This one would focus on young people who have superpowers and the school they are in to get their training. I think this is going to be another great show to add to our lineups, adapting the show from the comics. This is a show that is well known for its blood and gore, so it's pretty surprising to hear that they tried to add less of that in the show than there originally was in the comics. Now, I understand that these comics are pretty dark, but I had no idea that they were worse than the show. It makes sense. You can add much more in a real world where pictures and the reader's imagination really color the moments, instead of really having to create those moments on screen. But have no fear, this show did not shy away from creating some incredible and huge scenes that were filled with gross stuff. They packed as much punch into the show as they possibly could, and they did all of that by using a combination of practical effects, special effects, and CGI. Practical effects are the things they create that are real, like the physical suits that the creatures wear or the stage blood that they were covered in. Special effects are the things they add onto the scene or that they enhance. For example, if there is a ray of light and they recreate it to make thousands of light beams. And CGI is computer-generated imagery where they create something out of nothing. Like if the creatures act in front of a green screen and they add in a background, or if they act with another human and they turn him into a monster or animal afterwards. They use all of these techniques in this show to make the scenes really incredible and really, really memorable. Location, location, location. Location is always important. With many shows, the place where it is set becomes an important part of the show's fiber. The Boys is set in New York City, a dark and somewhat scary New York, where there is loads of space for things to happen and lots of places for people to hide, or hide things they don't want to be found. New York is, in my opinion, the perfect backdrop for the show. It is vast and gives loads of options for what could happen next. So, would you be surprised that almost none of the scenes from The Boys were actually filmed in New York City? Most of the show was actually filmed in Toronto. When you add in some amazing special effects, you can create some truly awesome areas. For example, Seven Towers is a dark building that towers over the buildings around it. It is intimidating and impressive. But in reality, it is the Roy Thompson Hall that can be found in the entertainment district of Toronto. It is a cool building, but not all that scary or imposing. But with a little bit of showbiz magic, it was digitally altered and extended to become the tower we see in the show. Robin's death. The team has said that this was one of the most difficult scenes of the entire show. They had to do a lot of practical things and blend that in with a lot of special effects. They wanted to make it as realistic as possible, so they had to do a lot of research and tests. They needed to know what it would look like to have a body atomized as Robin's would have been when A-Train runs through her. It is a very grisly, bloody bloody and gruesome scene. Pretty impressive, but one that took a lot of parts to complete. There were obviously a lot of special effects and CGI involved in creating the bursting body and bloody blob that were remains of Robin. But at the same time, Jack Quaid, who plays Huey, spent a lot of time covered in sticky stage blood to get that scene just right. And the hands that Huey was left holding onto, well, those were real. Okay, not really real in the sense that they were human hands, but real in the sense that they were props that were created to look incredibly real. It was not something that was added in later. Butcher's fight with Translucent. Doing an epic fight scene is really hard. You could get hurt with all the props around you, and you could hurt the actor you're fighting with. But the only thing that is harder? Fighting with no one else there. And that is what Karl Urban, who plays William Billy Butcher, had to face. He had a massive and awesome fight with Translucent, one that was violent and very dangerous. The only problem is that Translucent has a superpower that makes him invisible. So during their epic fight, he wasn't there. Urban had to dig deep so that he could make the scene believable. He needed to fight hard, take punches, and get tired, all with an opponent that did not really exist. And when you look at the end result, you would never even know it. It was one of the best fight scenes maybe ever, and he put everything into the scene to make it believable. Lucy the Whale. This is not a show that is great with marine animals. They have the character, the Deep, that is supposed to be the protector of the sea, but he quite frankly sucks at it. For anyone still recovering from the dolphin scene in Season 1, Lucy the Whale from Season 2 might just have pushed them completely over the edge. At least no real animals were harmed when making the show, but some constructed animals were definitely destroyed. It was one of those scenes that showcases how much of the series is real too. They do enjoy doing as many real scenes as possible. Much of what you see is reality with extra effects added in later. In this scene, the boys are trying to get away from the Deep, and the Deep is trying to capture them to get back into the Seven. The part where they're racing on the boat was completely real, and it could have gotten pretty dangerous at times. Huey, for example, didn't have a lot of places to hold on, so the actor could have really gotten hurt. The Deep was riding a whale and trying to stop them, and they drove right through poor Lucy, ending in a lot of blood and whale guts. But luckily, not real ones. They physically created the whale, adding effects to make it more realistic, so when they drove the boat through the whale, they really did that. Again, there was a lot of stage blood and goo added, and when Huey is inside the whale and the organs are still moving, the movement was added with special effects. This show is masterful in mixing all the tricks they have to create some incredible, if somewhat disturbing scenes. Some of the characters' powers. Each superhero has his or her own powers, and the team made sure to study each type of power and make sure they created them in a way that seemed realistic. For example, in the scenes where Homelander is flying, they make sure to use his natural movements and wire tricks to help make it more realistic and believable. To create Starlight's powers, they had to work hard to make sure that the light didn't bend in an unnatural way. And with the Deep, they mostly used his suit and practical effects to make his powers more believable. The only place that he did need to add effects was with his gills and making his breathing through them believable and not just ridiculous. The most important part of the show is that they focus on each little detail and create scenes that are completely believable and realistic, even while they make a show that goes so wildly beyond belief. The Boys is a show that is completely unique and a show like no other, and it is all the little details that help create the magic. Thanks for watching.